Good evening, everyone. Um, so, as you know, we had an interesting evening last night with the bombshell um, Web Sleuth interview. And even before I knew that one was going to be taking place, I had begun working on reviewing a past that Katie and her husband did. And I had been taking notes because unfortunately some of these interviews are so long. So I would like to share with you what I have for notes and thoughts. And this is, my opinion. Um, but I have also tagged Deception Detective in the title and the comments, and I will in the chat as well, because he is amazing. And if you don't subscribe to his channel, I encourage you to go to his channel, Deception Detective, and subscribe to his channel. But he has a noon tomorrow, Monday the 29th, video scheduled to drop, and that is on the Web Sleuth interview. So I had hoped for some time that he actually would have done an analysis of the interview I'm about to talk about. But none of us knew this Web Sleuth interview was coming. And I don't think that he had intentions on joining the conversation in that interview last night. I don't think he planned to call in. I believe he called in for another reason. But that being said, I am going to jump in, and lucky for you, that means I'm going to kind of try to fast forward. They don't even, this is like an over 3-hour long video, but they don't even get in there for an hour and 20 minutes. And they're not in there, like the whole 3 hours. And I'm going to do my best to just jump around over to the parts that are important. And if you see something or catch something that maybe I missed, comment. If you think I'm off my rocker and way off base, comment. And there's some things that might have stood out to me, but maybe I haven't put my finger yet on why. So let's just get to it. And I am going to make sure I don't forget to tag. So hopefully, maybe he will have time to look at it. He may have already pre-recorded the video. It's just for background, in my opinion. I really had wanted this interview analyzed by him, not me, an armchair deception detective. No, not really. But anyway, okay. So we are an hour and 20 minutes in, and this is when they join. So let's go. Here we go.
Oh, I'm here. Every day's a struggle, but we make it.
I know. Well, I do appreciate you taking the time to join me tonight so that we could just talk about your stepson, Sebastian, missing and everything that's transpired since our last conversation where you and Katie joined me to talk to me about Sebastian's disappearance. It seems like it's been a rough week.
It's been a rough 21 days and counting.
I know it has. And I just appreciate you taking the time to join us to maybe answer some questions. And I know there's some things that you wanted to clear the air about. And I appreciate you taking the time to just come over here and do that.
You're welcome.
Just trying to think where I want to start. I know there may be people that are watching or listening to this case. Everyone in the chat, if you would please, if you do have questions, the panel, Crystal, Arctic, and I have some questions and things that we are going to. We're just going to ask Chris. We've seen some people asking questions. Some just we want to ask our own questions. We want to just make sure that things that were asked from the very beginning, to make sure that we've covered all of those things. And this may be answering the question that you have. And once we have went through some of those questions, we will take some questions from the chat. And I just ask that if your question has already been answered by Chris in the live stream, that we may skip over your question, because I don't want to have to make him continue to re-answer the same question, over and over. So we're going to start out with some questions from the panel, and then we will hop over to the chat, and we'll have Chris to see if he'll answer some questions from you guys. So we appreciate everyone for your patience, and we just ask that you show respect, and just kindness goes a long way, and we appreciate that. Let me get over here. I'd made myself a couple of notes. So school, or at his father's, or at your house. Do you think there's any way possible that he could have met a friend online, either at school or at his father's, or at your house? Do you think that's possible in any way?
There's always a
So I just want to point out here that she begins to say something, Katie. She begins to say, "We didn't," and her husband interjects by saying, "There's always a possibility." So to me, maybe she was going to say something that contradicted what he was about to say. Could be nothing.
possibility. That is a question that I'll like. There's always a possibility that a child can do something. Now, from my best recollection, mom's best recollection, and the father's best recollection, not that we know of. Our
Okay.
house, as we've stated, has been, it is strict. It stays locked down with that kind of situation.
We use internet time and gaming as like a positive reinforcement rather than a free access.
Okay.
TBI is, well, excuse me, not just TBI, but all law enforcement agencies involved are actually anything and everything which way they can. They are doing their best to investigate.
Katie, can you walk us through, for anyone that's new to this case, that may be just finding out about Sebastian being missing, can you walk us through what happened on Sunday, like before Sebastian, went missing? Can you walk?
And I want to say, because I won't pause while she is going through the majority of the day, this does sound like the best day ever. And there is a lot of detail given in certain parts of what she says. So let me know what you think.
Walk everybody through that and what led up to you finding out that Sebastian was missing.
Yeah. Sunday morning, I'll just start at the morning. Sunday morning, we got up and I made a fun breakfast for us, spaghetti pancakes. Google it, y'all. Um, we FaceTime family while we were eating so he could brag because that's something he likes to do. And we were laughing and joking on FaceTime and having a good time with that. After breakfast, we got a call to go pick up um, our niece and go take her to meet up. So we did that. We went and picked her up, and we met her mom at BJ's, and we were there with family members. Um, we come home and put our groceries away, and then a little bit later we went to the bowling alley, a local bowling alley here, and we played games. And then and this is just Bubba and I, and we went to dinner, just the two of us, and then come home. Um,
It's the little things for me, like a local bowling alley, the extra. Um, and it might be nothing, but, she was like, we went to dinner, just the two of us, Bubba and I, and we went to the bowling alley, but then she says, and then we come home. And that was it. There was no, like, we came home. So the we was missing, probably not a big deal. But I also want, other than maybe her just saying Bubba just now, we're, we're going to keep an eye on this, but they so far have not said his name, either parent.
he took the trash out because that's his chore. And he come in and he was playing in his room until bedtime. And at bedtime, I told him, I said, hey, Bubba, it's time to go to bed. And he goes, okay, good night, Mama, I love you. And then he said good night to his puppies. And he went to bed.
Now, again, here we go with a lot of the details. He took the trash out because that was his chore. My kids do their chores. I just, they wash the dishes. They took put the groceries away. They did those things because that was their chore. Like, I don't know why that extra attention was added to that statement. But it continues like this. About the, saying goodnight to the puppies, saying, that he loves her. And while you might think that those minute details would be something you would be super focused on, when you're retracing, what maybe happened that night, what could have happened with your child, those minute details to me are not important. Kind of like the colossal popcorn in the prior interviews that I'm sure we've all heard about. The colossal popcorn.
Okay. And walk me through what happened. You said that you were on a phone call, you were on the couch, and
Sorry, and this is kind of frustrating because she is basically feeding Katie what she said in prior interviews. She's feeding Katie's statement back to her. So it's going to be a lot easier for Katie to stick to what she said before because it was just fed to her.
then you went to bed at midnight. Walk me through exactly what transpired during that time before you went to bed at midnight for you.
So, well, my husband, he works out of town a lot. So we normally sit and talk every evening. And I normally fall asleep on him. And he'll tell me, wake up, you got to go to bed. And and that was right around midnight. So I got up and I put the puppies up and I went to bed myself.
And again, this whole backstory on why they were on the phone that night, what their habit is around that night, trying to sell us on that story. When, you asked me, like, the simple thing would have been, well, I was on the phone with my husband, I fell asleep. He, said, hey, babe, wake up. You fell asleep. I heard you snoring. Oh, you're right. Okay. I mean, it's like that fast, but there was this whole story about, well, this is what we usually do, and this is our habit and things like that. And I don't know if law enforcement has looked into their call records as to whether or not these lengthy late night calls were normal routine for them. But I do believe that it's likely, in my opinion, that whatever happened probably happened, in the 9 to 12, probably closer to 9 to 10 window. And so that's just my theory.
Midnight. And I went to sleep, obviously. And then at 6 a.m., I went to wake him up for school, and that's when I couldn't find him. And
So here is my humorous deception detective funny thing. So, in a prior analysis that the deception detective did, he actually pointed out that the way Katie had mentioned about, I woke him up for school. That's what she said. I woke him up for school and he wasn't there. So that was her prior statement. I do believe that this husband and wife duo are all over these channels that are analyzing them. Not mine, because I don't, like, this is not what I do, but I'm doing this because of the other interview that happened, to point out discrepancies between the two. But I mean, this is if you will look at his video, and I know he'll catch this, that this statement changed. And honestly, when you hear their video from Web Sleuths, and you see in almost all of the Sebastian Rogers groups on Facebook, they are members of the group. They are all over this stuff. They may not talk about it. They may have stopped interviewing, but they are all over this. And I believe that sentence may have been changed because it was directly pointed out on his analysis and then heavily talked about in those groups. So I personally think that might have been changed intentionally. I went to wake him up for school, and that's when I couldn't find him, to be a more appropriate statement versus the other interview. I woke him up for school and he wasn't there.
sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Take your time. Take your time. Tell me, did Sebastian take any type of medication before he went to bed, or that would make him sleepy? Or if he did take medication, it was just in the morning, or did he take medication at night before he went to bed?
He did take medication nightly and daily. Um,
Okay.
Just for HIPAA reasons, we will not disclose
I
what the
understand.
medication is.
I was just trying to think, if there was something that might have made him sleepy, like if he would have woken up, I just, all these different questions.
And I have to rewind So back here, I forgot I made a note of this. She says, and I went to bed myself at midnight. That's I went to bed, or I went to bed at midnight, whatever you want to say. And I went to sleep, obviously. Why obviously? I mean, why add that word in there? Um, yeah, so they're talking about the HIPAA, which, by the way, I have done a lot of digging, and HIPAA does not apply to the parents. So, again, to me, I think he's deflecting.
He did take medication nightly and daily.
Okay. Okay.
Just for HIPAA reasons, we will not disclose
I
what the
understand.
medication is.
I was just trying to think, if there was something that might have made him sleepy, like if he would have woken up, I just, all these different questions that people have
So,
asked. So,
right.
but you don't have to disclose any particular, nobody needs to know that, specifically. I just wanted to ask. I've seen a lot of people in chat saying that he.
So now we're going to talk about the door, and Katie talking about how Sebastian consistently, and she finally uses his name 20 minutes later, Sebastian consistently and regularly locked the door behind him. Consistently and regularly. And so now knowing this, that their doors need to be locked, he takes, this was my note, he takes no shoes, nothing with him. He takes nothing with him. No snacks, no shoes, because snacks is another common theme that they talk about with him. But he has the presence of mind to lock the door behind him, because this has been clarified, because I wasn't sure, but it has now been clarified by them that you have to punch the code in to make the door lock. So if the door was locked and he went out the door, he would have had to punch the code, I apologize, to lock the door. So I've struggled from the beginning with him not taking shoes, food, water, his games, a coat, all of these things, but he thinks about locking the door.
Went out the window versus he went out the door. How did the door get locked? That you found the door locked. Can you walk me through exactly what that looks like and what you found? Was the door locked? What do you think may have occurred for him walking off versus
Well, I'll tell you
that he's
this.
with someone? Okay.
We didn't find any signs of the windows, but and without disclosing the details of my door locks, I will
I
say that
understand.
Sebastian regularly and consistently went out and locked the door behind himself.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let me get over here because I have some other questions that are coming in.
Now, I will say this much: let them ask questions. I mean, we're not hiding anything. I've heard so much negativity that
I'm going to just jump to the part. I think we've heard enough of that repetitive stuff last night. So basically, the host asks them what Sebastian's strengths and weaknesses are. And again, you'll if you haven't seen a bunch of their interviews, and you pick up this pattern that when the topic turns to Sebastian, there are these really awkward chuckles from him.
Strengths and weaknesses that he had, because no two kids are the same, is why I'm asking.
that is you are nowhere far from the truth on that, because that is so correct. Sebastian is extremely high functioning. His weakness, he does not have a sense of personal space. They've always been working with him about like a 3-foot rule because he likes to be right up in your face. Hey, whoa.
He deals with some social and emotional dysregulation issues.
Mhm.
Simply put, his emotions or responses don't always appropriately match the situation. And socially he can be somewhat awkward interacting with others because he doesn't always match, like, I don't know how to say it right. Like, someone will want to talk about one conversation, but if that's not the subject he's fixated on, he will just railroad over that and go right back to what he's thinking. Um, but at the same time, he's also, for the most part, a pretty happy kid, and he loves being a helper, and he likes animals, and he's really smart.
He can play in a game of chess, and he's beat grown men in chess.
He actually likes reading occasionally, but only if it's what he wants to read. So like Minecraft books.
So I want to make 2 comments here. Obviously, you were asked about your child's strength and weaknesses, and I've been asked this more times than I can count over my children's school year careers. And I don't know that I can ever recall an instance where I shared what I thought their weaknesses were first. I would say it was probably 80 to 85% positive, and 15% of it would be, the weaknesses or things they struggle on and things like that. But the fact that they initially spoke on the weaknesses was upsetting. And I also noted at this point, Katie's husband says he's beat grown men in chess. He actually, and to me, that's kind of interesting that, he seems, for one moment, he has pride in Sebastian, and it's talking about beating a grown man at something, which goes to that, what I think about his personality, but, and who he is. So we'll continue.
He loves to read those. Albeit his humor is a little different. He's funny. I prefer, he's silly more than anything.
How is he with strangers?
Depends on the day, to be honest with you. He goes either he's never met a stranger all the way to, depending on his mood, he don't want nothing to do with anybody. So it's kind of difficult to answer that question because it varies depending on where he is in the moment.
Okay.
Normally, he's there's times he's not afraid to talk to people. There's times he is afraid to talk to people. Adults, maybe not so much, but children, he has no problem approaching children and talking.
For the most part.
For the most part, like I said, it just depends on what mood and what day of the week you catch him.
Okay. Artie, do you have a question you'd like to ask?
I just wanted to know if maybe thinking back on it, is there anything you can think of that seemed off or out of the ordinary prior to him going missing that during the night before you noticed he was missing?
I honestly didn't notice anything that was like, oh my God, that's weird, I mean, we had a really good day, he wasn't in trouble at all. We went to bed on a good.
I'm hoping if Deception Detective looks at this interview, he could maybe help point out why, for some reason, the beginning was very weird to me. I not exactly can't put my finger on why, about the, you know, I honestly didn't notice anything, that was like, "Oh my God, that's weird," you know? I mean, we really had a good day. Um, and other than the fact that she's pointing out, you know, what a great day they had yet again, not really talking about like how he was feeling. But what's interesting was how, you know, she said, you know, he wasn't in trouble. And in more than one interview, they talked about, you know, I might have been the Chronicles of Olivia interview where immediately I was bothered. And this was like their first interview. So, I mean, in the moment I caught, I think it was when they said, where they were pushed because they did not willingly do any call to action of any kind. They weren't, you know, doing anything. But at the end they were, and they said, you know, we're talking about him coming home. And one of them said, there's no malice. And I think this is just really going with the theory, like what something happened in the home. A punishment to me is not far-fetched. You know, discipline going wrong. I mean, punishment is talked about over and over and over again. And if he didn't like the disciplinary measure or he was locked out, you know, which comes up in this interview, and they don't know for certain that he's alive or not, then, you know, that early on, you know, they'd be saying like, you know, there's no malice, you know, it to me is like, you know, they're victim blaming and you did something wrong and you got in trouble. But if you come home, you know, it's going to be all good, but it probably won't be. But that could be me overthinking things.
No. And I don't know if maybe he just wasn't saying something, but nothing. And I've gone over this so many times. I'm ill, but I didn't see or notice anything that was like red flag, you know?
Okay.
He didn't have any meltdowns or anything like that that seemed off.
No, he was actually really well behaved that day. He was even keel for the most part all day.
Can I ask the question?
Sure.
Was that unusual for him to
No,
be well behaved all day?
not necessarily. And
Sebastian goes through phases.
he's got streaks where he's great, and then it's like he,
Goes through remission.
yeah, like he'll screw up and he'll get in trouble, and then he'll be good again, and he'll screw up. I mean, he's like a typical kid, um, in a sense, but he just has autism, and I mean it's hit or miss.
But like he'll be doing really, really great for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden it's like he'll flip a switch. Sorry. And and then we're working on going to the bathroom, and we're working on manners, and we're working on attitude, and then and then we'll go through that phase, and then we'll go through and he'll flip the switch again, and he's doing really great. He just goes
I
through.
understand that
It's like
completely. Trust me.
progress backpedal, but
Now, when I saw on social media, some people were talking about Seth had spoken on, I guess it was, maybe it was the Pascal show that he recently spoke on. And he was talking about how at the end of the school year, Sebastian was supposed to come and live with him. And can you tell us anything about that? Is there anything specific to know about that? I think a lot of people have been, have been saying some very interesting things. According to some posts that I saw. Apparently, it's because Chris, you are that he's scared of you. That he's scared of you, and that you're bullying him at home. And I hate, I don't like to ask these questions, but I
I
feel
would
like that this
prefer.
needs
I
to
would
be
actually. I would actually.
addressed.
All right, here we go again. Okay. The awkward chuckle. And he's being asked about Sebastian being afraid of him. And I think this is the first time he finally says his name in the interview. But if I recall correctly, there was no categorical denial. There was talking around it, but I don't believe he directly answered. The first thing you would think he would say is, Sebastian was not afraid of me. Absolutely not.
Prefer
This
you ask
because
these questions.
I just want you to talk to us about why people are saying this, and why people are also putting online that you have domestic violence charges. And I just wanted you to talk to us about that. If you, whatever you feel like you can tell us, so we can try to reel that in.
Oh no, I'm okay to address every bit of this.
And his demeanor does start to change a bit. And I really believe, because the interviewers in this were just so protective of them and what was being said of them and to them and things like that, I don't believe that they anticipated this was going to be brought up by them. I think they figured this would be a cakewalk, and that would be, oh, we're not going to ask them that question. And to be honest with you, I'm surprised the question was asked.
Okay.
So you mentioned Sebastian's afraid of me. Well, that is a loaded question, because somebody who has released some information out there from another show, who I won't put his name out there, allowed somebody to say something. Now, mind you, when you have a teenage child or teenage children, all parents know this. Your children are not going to like you, because you're not there to be their best friend. You're there to be a parent. And as parents, you have rules they have to follow. If they don't, there's consequences. Sebastian will say one day he's upset and mad at me for something, and 20 minutes later will run up to me, throw his arms around me, cry, and say, I'm sorry and I love you. So, when you get in trouble, of course you don't like your parents. He said the exact same things about his father, but that's when you set him down and said, look, bud, parents are parents, and we do what we have to do. And unfortunately, you're not going to like it, but down the road, when you get older and if you decide to have children, someday you're going to look back and say, man, they were right. So, I mean, people have their opinions, they have their thoughts and their assumptions, and that's fine. I have never once stopped a person from having them. That's why we are people. That's how we are. But knowing the facts are one thing, and then assumptions behind what you want to put out there is something totally different.
Right.
You address.
So listen close, because now so he just did not categorically deny that Sebastian was afraid of him. He is then going to turn around and do the exact same thing with Nina and the claim of domestic violence. He is going to play what I call word salad with it. And you'll notice, like, he does this thing where he kind of like cuts off words and he chops answers up, and he does it again later in this video. Domestic violence, no. Protective order, yes. He didn't deny that he was abusive to Nina. He did reference domestic violence, no, later, and then refers to the no contact and the protective orders. I believe he would technically not be lying about his background, as he doesn't have a domestic violence conviction on his background. And when he shares this story, he just continues and continues. And this is part, and at the end of it, you'll notice the pattern. He says false information, calling into law enforcement, pointing the finger at stepfather, and he did this in last night's interview, where he talks about resources being diverted because basically you guys are putting the microscope on us, and then they can't be out there, doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I think he is repeating this over and over and over again, not because I think he believes it, but I think it's because he is deflecting, and I think he, is trying to, convince people that that's what they're doing. But I don't believe so many people could possibly be entirely wrong that something bad happened here. And again, there were no denials that Nina, wasn't a victim of domestic violence. But the lies will continue.
Addressed domestic violence. Okay. There are some folks out there who've decided to go online and go pull some public records, which perfectly okay with. Domestic violence. If I had domestic violence in my background, I wouldn't have certain credentials that I have, because you're not legally allowed to. Domestic violence, no. I've had a temporary protective order, and I had a no contact order placed against me in New Mexico with my ex-wife. Now, mind you, let me back up and I'll play the whole story for you. Me and my ex-wife, we actually lived here in Tennessee for a little bit. We had a daughter, and at the time, my daughter was only maybe 6 weeks old. An event took place while I was holding my daughter, and when that took place, I filed for an immediate protection order against her. We went to court. The court made their decisions. I gave my daughter back to her mother, and when she received her, she jumped in a truck and flew right back to New Mexico. Got to New Mexico within 2 days of being there. She turned around and filed the exact same thing against me in New Mexico. So everything that people are reading, it's on a court document. But what you don't read is the all the things that are happening in the court. You're not reading the transcript. So unfortunately, you don't know the full story. But
Right.
if people want to ask, I'm okay to tell you. Yes, I still have a current custody case going on in New Mexico that actually has absolutely zero bearing on this case with Sebastian. I do ask people to refrain from bringing that up because it has no bearing. And all you're going to do is put assumptions, and you're going to allow people to have their speculations and bring out more false information.
We're going to jump ahead here because I do know that a lot of you are probably going to want to be out of here within a half an hour, because the Web Sleuth thing. I'm going to jump ahead to one of the biggest lies he has done from the beginning. So we're going to get to the polygraph, okay? And so I just want to make it very clear. This interview we're watching was a live stream from March 22nd. Nancy Grace, the air date of the interview was March 25th. Okay. 8 minutes into the interview with Nancy Grace, he denied taking a polygraph. He said, Katie did, I didn't. I had offered them, and law enforcement just keeps telling me that I don't need to take one because my alibi is, it's rock solid. Prior to that, I believe it was on Smiley's story maybe, where he, had claimed he had taken one. Then in Nancy Grace, he denied taking one. And he was offered one by Nancy Grace. And at least from what I watched in the interview, he deflected on that. And he just told Nancy, that, I offered and they said it wasn't necessary. If he did offer and law enforcement refused it, I understand it's not admissible in court, but it is could be a valuable tool in certain situations. So here we go with his game that he likes to play, his lies, but his game of word salad. That's just my fun little word for it. Because this came up, I believe, again last night. It was very contentious. And I, of course, would love to know from Seth. I don't know that he confirmed it, if I recall last night, that he received confirmation from law enforcement that Chris had taken the test and passed. I've also done some research where it looks like, at least the majority of what I've read, I've not read anything to contradict it, let's put it that way, that law enforcement doesn't have to tell you the truth about the results of your polygraph. But anyways, let's listen to him.
And what people don't understand is every time somebody puts something out there, or they call into the law enforcement agency and says, the stepfather did it, you need to check the stepfather. Well, now you've just pulled a body away from the investigation because they are mandated to deal with that.
Right.
And I have told everybody from the very beginning, the TBI put a news link out, and in there it does state that all three parents have extremely been cooperative and constantly are continuously working with law enforcement. And there's absolutely nothing to show that we are responsible, foul play, any of that nature. People have asked about interrogations and polygraphs. All this stuff has been done. All of it has
Yeah, I
been
think
done.
that was one of the questions that I had up next was, have you both taken a polygraph test?
The results are passed.
Chris, can I ask something? Because I know that
Yes, ma'am.
people was going to ask it afterwards. The event that happened, was that toward you or by you?
It was toward me.
Okay.
So to give you I'll go ahead and paint that story very crystal clear. I was holding my daughter in my left arm. Okay. Mind you, she was a little baby. She was up against my chest, cuddled up next to my cheek and my shoulder. My ex-wife accused me of having an affair with a coworker, who was not much into men. I'll let you go that direction wherever you want to go. Just wasn't into men. And that coworker was my boss at the time. And she didn't like, and I was like, "You're kidding me, right?" And I showed it to her. She's very hot-headed. She didn't like the answer, swore up and down I was, and she connected and slapped me across the left-hand side of my face where I was holding my daughter. If you can do that while a man is holding a child, or a woman is holding a child for that matter, if you can slap that person while they're holding that child, that says something about you.
Yeah. It does.
And I'm not going to be in that situation. I wouldn't expect any person to be in a situation of that. So I had to do what I had to do based on being a parent, which was best for my child.
Right.
Future that people would be online saying there was an incident and nobody asked what the incident was.
All right, so here we go. Okay, he already said earlier the results passed. Okay, now that was the first answer about the polygraphs. The results passed. That's all he said. Now he's being asked this again. Listen to how she asks and what he answers.
You
And I'm
said the
sure,
results.
I'm sure they're
The
going to
results are,
spin it.
yeah. The results of the polygraph was that you passed. Is that both of you passed, or can you say?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to catch the lie later. Somebody in this amazing chat caught this lie because it is asked again in 8 minutes. Okay, so he says the results of the polygraph that you passed, is that both of you passed, or can you say yes? Okay, so most people would assume that he was saying yes, we both passed. Now I'm gonna just jump ahead here because this is what a piece of work he is. I'm sorry, but this is wonderful. Here we go.
Just popped up that said they want to know that you definitely took a polygraph and passed because it got cut off by a different question and they feel like you did not answer that. So I'm just asking one more time. This is the last time, guys. I'm going to revisit this question.
Okay. For the record.
Mo, he said he passed it, according to Amy.
Well, hold on. Somebody asked the question, was a polygraph taken and has it been passed? Yes. I didn't specify who or when.
See, now he's saying I didn't say who or when. Then he, for Nancy Grace, he admits he hadn't. So this is the game, this is the manipulation, and this is the word salad. And he did this in the Smiley Story 3-hour whatever video calling that all the parent, that they did, where he did this exact same thing with the guy that called in who said, I was messaging you and you said XYZ. And he's like, no, I didn't. And the guy's going back and forth with them. And finally he just says, but you said precisely these words. And that just shows you he is trying very hard to be a skilled manipulator. And if people don't know him and maybe haven't seen all the different sides of him that have been coming out, the personalities he's showing, or behaviors or attitudes, and maybe you just had a few one-off, like I'm Mr., super polite, yes ma'am, no ma'am. If he sold law enforcement on that's who he is, Mr. Nice Guy, and the questions were posed a certain way, do they know that they were maybe manipulated? I don't know. And last night he said he took it. He said he took 2, which to me tells me, why did you need 2? Did you take one early on that was inconclusive, that it failed? Did you have to take a second one because maybe they came up with some additional questions they wanted to ask you about? But he said 2 different agencies. I thought that was very interesting. Maybe they never happened. Maybe they did, and maybe he passed. We don't know.
But what I can tell you, everything has been vetted completely. Polygraphs have come back as passed. So I'm confused as in why they're all wondering if
He's confused why people are wondering about a polygraph, but you've lied about this numerous times.
my wife and the biological father took one. When law enforcement agency has come out and told everybody, even in the TBI news link, if you guys hadn't read that, please go out and read that. That's got a lot of great information in it, especially it's probably the most up-to-date information. But they will even tell you at this point in time, they have no reason to speculate foul play, anything on the.
Right there, he said there is no, I believe he was going to say evidence. This is a theme of his, wanting evidence, wanting proof. This is a theme in his interviews. When he gets asked a hard question, he says, bring me the proof. How do you know this? If you know that, bring me the proof. Instead of just a simple, I didn't do that. Like last night, he was asked a couple things that were probably definitely not true, such as, does your family own a funeral home? No. Wow. So he can answer that with a clear, crystal clear no. But when it comes to some of this other stuff, he will say proof, evidence, and it's just it's very repetitive. And I believe in this case, he stopped himself from saying, at this point in time, there is no evidence. And he stopped himself, I think, short of saying evidence, and then said, they have no reason to speculate foul play. Because what would that mean if he said, there is no evidence? There's no evidence of foul play instead of they have no reason to speculate. Because in his mind right now, he believes law enforcement is not even speculating that that he or his wife could be involved in his mind, because he believes he's that good. And you know what? Maybe he is. Maybe he is that good of a manipulator if you've never encountered someone like him. However, if he had said evidence there, that would have been just huge slip up. And to me, it was like, oh, we were almost right there. And for the record, as much as my blood just boils every time I hear his voice, I don't believe he physically did anything that night in the home to Sebastian. I believe what happened was probably more, an incident that happened. Not to say he couldn't have been on the phone giving directions, but I don't know.
Parents, everybody's been extremely cooperative of anything and everything they've asked us.
Okay. And Bobby, why did that happen? Because it's a public post. And these are questions that people are asking. And that is why it's up there. So before we go any further, we'll go back, and this is another, I have had many questions about this, about supposedly Sebastian's grandmother spoke out last night, and he said, Trev apparently quoted her from some comments on a YouTube chat. Is there anything that you want to say about this particular comment?
For the sake of time, I'm going to skip past this part. But again, it is another instance, and you could just read the transcript. It's another instance where he will not categorically deny that he verbally abused Seth's mother. And I do believe that what they're referring to in this situation, so if you go to about the 1 hour 58-minute mark, you can go back and you can listen to it on your own. I believe that what they are cryptically talking about is the grandmother, Seth's mom, disclosing to Katie and her husband what Sebastian disclosed to her. And if we can believe what Katie's husband is saying in this interview, he's basically saying, we went to law enforcement. They told us that it wasn't necessary to do anything, and grandmother got upset. And I believe a lot of people have made some comments about the grandmother. How come she didn't say sooner or whatever? If this is this very subject, this goes to show you that those people are wrong. Grandmother did exactly what she should have done. And I don't even know if they really went to law enforcement and reported it. I would love to know that too. But we are going to jump ahead because this is, I just don't even know how they can do some of these for so long. Some of these interviews. So he says, this is interesting. And this is at the
Messaged multiple
150.
times about
Did I
this.
miss that? How did I miss that?
If you want to address it, you don't, and if you don't want to, you don't have to. I just wanted to ask you.
I will address it. I have, like I said, if somebody's refusing to address something that shows suspicion, I have no problems to address this. The grandmother, which is Seth, Robin is the name. She is Seth's biological father's mom. She made her statement on whatever YouTube channel. That's fine.
Thank you, Trev. Okay, and
I think I figured out what happened. I jumped ahead to prove the repetitive lie, and I never went back. So this I thought was very interesting. He again does this often, that he says he can't say things that are part of the investigation, that I believe is probably not true. Kind of like he repetitively says that law enforcement tells them not to search. And I don't know if she really believes it, but this host later in the interview implies she actually believes it, because she says, where has law enforcement allowed you to search? I don't know if any of you guys are mothers, fathers, or whatever, but if you had a very close loved one missing, I don't believe law enforcement could stop you from searching.
And someone wanted to ask, Angela said, I would like for Chris to clarify what he meant when he said he hasn't seen Sebastian since early February. Are you able to clarify? And if you're not, just state that.
So I cannot give certain details with this investigation, and that's kind of one of those things.
Okay.
I wished I could. Eventually down the road, I'm sure that will allow to come out.
Okay.
But as it stands right now, the answer that I've given is early February.
As it stands now, the answer I've given is nobody else has had an issue saying where they were, by the way, during the time frame in question.
It was the last time that I saw Sebastian. And no, I was not home.
So to be honest with you, I've thought since the beginning that he is lying about not having seen Sebastian since the beginning of February. He does categorically deny I was not home when all of this took place. But this phrase, the answer that I've given is early February was the last time that I saw Sebastian.
When all of this took place, I actually got back to Nashville. I believe it was later in the afternoon, but I was on the phone with the police for the majority of that day until I physically got here.
A question that I've seen asked, so I figured I wrote it down to ask you. Why was the sheriff's office called and not 911?
So our house is not designated for city limits, which jurisdictions for police are inside city limits. The sheriff's department is what governs our area because we're outside of that. So if you call 911 and you're outside of those areas, it goes to a central point, but then they will turn around and ask your location, and then they redirect you to another dispatcher. If you know who the dispatcher, who your law enforcement agency is that governs your area, I just call them straight. There's no point in wasting time going.
I just noticed this time around. See, and this is like the fourth or fifth time I've listened to this. And maybe that was a slip up. If you know the dispatcher, and then corrected he corrected himself. Let's see what that said. If you know who the dispatcher is, and then he corrects to, or who your law enforcement agency is. Maybe nothing.
From one to another to get to what I need when I know exactly who to call.
And the emphasis on, I know exactly who to call.
And you guys were on a three-way call because you were not, you were coming from out of town. Is that correct?
We were on a three-way call.
Yeah, that law enforcement was called on a three-way call.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to clarify that. Terry Dean wants to ask you if Sebastian could have been sneaking out prior without y'all knowing.
I would like to say no.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is not Sebastian. He's not a child that just goes outside at any point in time without telling somebody something.
It's somehow that zero knowledge.
Yeah, if it had happened, we don't know about it. But our neighborhood is a very small subdivision.
And if you tend to notice, Katie rarely speaks, and when she does speak up, it seems to be on something really not very critical or important to the situation, or in response to something that is highly unlikely to be what happened in the situation. And she free flows in the way she's talking. But then when you ask something super crystal clear of her or him, a lot of this this deflection, which, let's see, where was that? Where he says, the camera footage. Can't divulge that information. So wait a minute. It's been like, at this point, he's been missing about a month. You mean to tell me that you can't give a clear yes or no? We do or do not have cameras in our home? Because I believe I caught a slip up in an earlier interview where they referenced a camera inside the home. And I believe it was something related to it. The camera caught him sneaking snacks. I could be wrong. I haven't gotten into re-listening to that. And other interviews, it's an absolute no cameras. Nancy Grace, no cameras, no lights, and that was, oh, wait, we do have floodlights, like, hey, we can't find Nancy Grace. But here we are, talking about the cameras again.
It's not huge. And everybody here looks out for everybody. We all watch to make sure everything's kosher in the neighborhood, and nobody has reported anything of that nature.
Okay. Crazy Linda asked, were there any weapons in either homes? And if so, were they all accounted for by law enforcement?
Yes.
Okay. And
Do you all have camera footage in your home? I've heard people saying that too.
That is some information that we cannot divulge at this time due to the ongoing investigation.
okay.
Thank you.
I wish we
Did
could, but unfortunately we can't.
Did Sebastian have a key to the house? And if he did he take that key with him?
That is another part of an investigation that's ongoing that we cannot answer.
Okay.
Can I ask the question I've seen? Whose idea was it for Sebastian to move in with his bio dad after school was out?
All three parents.
And another thing that I've seen, and I mean, I understand if y'all can't answer, but was there also a
Did Sebastian have a key to the house? And if he did he take that key with him?
That is another part of an investigation that's ongoing that we cannot answer.
Okay.
Well, fascinatingly enough, he clearly was able to answer that question for Nancy Grace. In the Nancy Grace interview, they were very, very descriptive about the locks on their house. Now, how does this happen?
Can I ask the question I've seen? Whose idea was it for Sebastian to move in with his bio dad after school was out?
All three parents.
And another thing that I've seen, and I mean, I understand if y'all can't answer, but was there also a restraining order on the biological dad?
That was posted in a Facebook group
Yes.
that someone sent to me. I think, no, that was something else. Let me find it. Someone
It
sent
was
that to me.
it was actually underneath JLR's video.
People go through divorces, and it is not the best of times. So I was not privy to that kind of information prior to my relationship with my wife. That if anything happened, that happened prior to my knowledge. So I cannot and give you an answer of that. But what I can say is, if it is out there, it could be of public knowledge. It could be a public record, but I don't have any knowledge of it.
Okay. That's what I needed to ask on that one. Okay. Off by a different question, and they feel like you did not answer that. So I'm just asking one more time. This is the last time, guys. I'm going to revisit this question.
Okay. For the record.
Mo, he said he passed it, according to Amy.
Well, hold on. Somebody asked the question, was a polygraph taken and has it been passed? Yes. I didn't specify who or when. But what I can tell you, everything has been vetted completely.
Okay, so I'm going to go past this because we already did this, and we're going to jump to 2 hours and 3 minutes in, where a person in the chat is now prompting them, to talk about what's important.
Sebastian. Cluminati is local to your area, and she would like to know where you would like for people to be looking for Sebastian so they can be looking there. Is there any areas that you and Katie want to have people that are out there searching, where you want them to be hanging flyers? What can you tell us about that?
Everywhere. I mean, everywhere. I mean, for me to give you a designated area was
This is fascinating as well. He is about to say, for me to give you an area to search, he's basically saying it would make us look suspicious.
suspect that we think he's in an area. Well, we don't know. So anywhere and everywhere, people be very vigilant. Please be vigilant. You'd be surprised at how complacent we as society get when we're not focused on things. We're so driven on our day-to-day functions that we forget about things that are going on around us. We're
Right.
all guilty, myself included. You know, anywhere and everywhere you can look. If there's not a flyer and you can print one off and post it up where you don't see a flyer, please do. I'm speaking for all three parents and the
And I just want to say, as he is transitioning into this nice guy, gentle tone, I would be very, I would believe, I'm very confident this is who he is showing law enforcement when he does interact with them. This version, not the version earlier in the interview, not the version in last night's interview, not the version in Smiley's interview. He's showing this. Notice he goes on Nancy Grace, where law enforcement might be watching because it's Nancy Grace. She's huge. And he knows that she has a panel of legal professionals, psychologists, former detectives, things like that. And he is, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, brief. They're as brief as they can possibly be, in my opinion.
all the families. We would greatly appreciate that. We send prayers, our thoughts, and our love out to everyone. I promise you. If there was a way we could make it felt and we could show it, we would.
We appreciate that, and we're happy. We're happy to help in any way that we can to find Sebastian. Ginger Snaps has a question. Can any of Sebastian's school friends drive?
So I think there's a misconception about what he calls friends. He's not in normal classes. He's in like what they call it, Why We Try program. So any kids with IEPs and et cetera, things of that nature, are put into this class where they have 3 or 4 teachers or assistants in the room with a teacher at one given time. And while that goes on, there's not many kids in the class. So if Sebastian says they're a friend and they talk to him, he considers them a friend. But he doesn't have friends like most kids that would go and, hey, I'm going over to Johnny and Susie's house to hang out. Because of his social awkwardness, it's very difficult for him to make friends. And he's actually asked for Christmas. We ask, what do you want for Christmas? I just want friends.
Right.
We're at that level, but no, unfortunately, he does not associate with kids that can drive.
Okay.
So I wished he had a lot of friends, but I think after this, and when he comes home, this boy's gonna have more friends than he knows what to do.
Okay. And Doodlebug Fart says, I wonder if Sebastian knows how to connect his switch to Wi-Fi. Like, had he ever done that before?
No, ma'am, he does not have the ability. We have the Wi-Fi locked down, so you have to request to join it, and then that request has to be approved by us. But his switch actually has parental controls on it set forth by his mom.
Okay. And Vet Girl
Does he have the
RWB.
same rules at his dad's? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Does he have the same rules at his dad's house?
No, ma'am, I don't believe so. We respect like what he does at his dad's house is under his dad's roof. We do stay in communications as far as like his behavior. Hey, this is what's going on. This is the punishment he's received. It's up to you if you want to continue with that.
Again, punishment. I'm going to just jump this. This was just another case of, in my opinion, deflecting about the shoes.
I think we have a delay, Crystal,
Sorry.
because it's okay.
I think we do.
Let me ask this question real
How
quick.
many shoes did Sebastian have?
Say it one more time.
How many pairs of shoes did Sebastian have?
Well,
I'm not going to tell you how many shoes he has, but I will say that all of the shoes he has are accounted for.
did y'all catch Mom?
I
It
didn't
broke
quite
up a little
hear.
bit for me. Did you hear?
Okay, she said that she would not divulge how many pairs of shoes he has, but law enforcement has accounted for every pair of shoes.
I have accounted for all of his shoes.
Okay.
So if you catch that right there, she wanted to correct him. In the event law enforcement saw this video, in my opinion, they could have caught her in a lie because he was saying law enforcement has accounted for every pair of shoes. And she clears it up. I have accounted for all of his shoes. She dictated to them how many shoes he had. And that's just weird to me. Why you couldn't say, like, I don't even know how many pairs he has. Or, there was this talk about him growing out of shoes. He's got 4 pairs of shoes. 3 didn't fit him. And the pair that did is right over there. That simple. So we, at this point, in my opinion, she just verified we cannot assume he left barefoot. And if he did have shoes on, that would make some sense. And that would allow for you to wrap your mind out of him fleeing, in my opinion, or being locked out and then fleeing, or being chased or whatever, and being able to get further without hurting himself if he had shoes on. You can keep everybody looking really close to home with the mindset that, guy, he'd be barefoot, just wandering. I mean, how far in that really densely wooded area over there could he get barefoot, But we don't know that he didn't have shoes on. And I think I think this was something that we caught here. And that was, 2 hours, 10 minutes, 40 seconds? So that was interesting.
Vet Girl says, can you ask what Sebastian's normal school night routine is? Like some kids like to have their shower or a favorite blanket, their favorite pajamas. Please and thanks.
Sure. Sebastian comes home, gets off the school bus, comes in the house, does his chores, completes his homework, eats dinner. That time kind of varies. I don't have a set time on that. Bedtime, we normally have it right around 8:30, 9 o'clock. Sebastian gets a shower most of the time before he goes to bed, around 7 o'clock ish.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like I said, he's in the bed by 9 o'clock.
And Sebastian didn't have anyone that lived in the area that he hung out with at all that lives near you.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Alicia P, for that question. And then Allen Tank says, what's Sebastian like with people outside the family that he doesn't know? Is he shy with strangers? Is he outgoing?
So that question you asked earlier in the podcast, it depends. Each day it kind of varies. He can be shy. He can be talkative. With most kids, he don't hold back when it comes to kids. He is like, he's got a up close and in your face kind of thing that he's got to work on. So it kind of makes it difficult. With adults, it depends. There are some days he doesn't even want to talk to family members, and some days he may. It just kind of depends.
Okay. And hang on one second. I'm just getting to the next one. Arctic, did you or Crystal have a question that you wanted to ask?
No, really want to make sure that the audience has a chance to get all their questions in.
So I'm going to jump ahead to the 2:28 mark, where they ask what should happen to the person if he was taken. What should happen to them?
That you have it.
Individually, what do you all think should happen is to the person if somebody abducted Sebastian?
That is not for us to determine. That is, if somebody has Sebastian, all I'm going to say is that is nothing that we want to be a part of until that is legal. That is law enforcement agency. That has nothing to do with us. We just
They go to jail, so I don't.
mom's saying she better hope they go to jail.
Well, I will
agree
say
with
what
that.
I think should happen. I think that their ass needs to be passed around the jail like a goddamn honey bun.
Well, I mean, trust me, I have my own personal opinions, but
All I have to say is they better pray they go to jail before I get my hands on them if I find out someone's hurting my baby.
all
Very
I'm going to
good point.
say is we have a legal system, and let them go through that aspect of it. And in the end, karma has a name. It will come around and show its face. And eventually they will have to answer for what they've done.
Truecom Cafe with Dago said,
It's very telling. I thought that was kind of telling what their thoughts are on what should happen to the person. I'm going to jump down to the flashlight because they, were adamant about this flashlight, and he had this flashlight with him in past interviews. It was like a little tiny keychain flashlight. Did I pass it? Let's see.
you if there was any flashlights that were missing and that prompted you to go look. Tell me about that. There was some questions about the flashlight, so I just wanted you guys to reiterate that.
Right. So Sebastian had it's about a little 3-inch. If you think about the little keychain flashlights, that used to find at vendor tables they give out for free, cheapies. It was something that he picked up at one of the local festivals, and so right now we still to this date cannot find it. So we are assuming that he took it with him because it cannot be found.
It cannot be found. I think that one of them knows where it is, or at this point, both of them know where it is, and are certain it is not going to be found.
Okay. And how often does law enforcement update you guys?
Very regularly.
Okay. And Chris Black says, what about the initial press release where it was said that Sebastian liked to stay up late?
I don't remember hearing that,
I
but
don't either, but I just wanted to put that out there because I thought maybe I missed something.
well, I mean, if he, like I said, we said earlier, he's a typical teenager, so he will get up in the middle of the night. It's hard to say. I personally don't remember that being said in the interview, and I'm sorry. And I'm not doubting it, but I mean, he's a typical teenager. He'd get up, go get snacks, and go back to his room. So
He did regularly get up at night.
Mom's saying he regularly got up at night.
Where Summer wanted to know, what's Sebastian's favorite food, drink? Is it ice cream, chips?
He is a
Anything with sugar in it.
Anything with sugar.
favorite drink is probably a Yoo-hoo.
No, he'd take chocolate milk over Yoo-hoo.
Oh, well, okay. Well, chocolate drink, chocolate milk.
As
Yeah.
long as it's not the fat-free chocolate milk that the school switched to, because he's really upset that the school switched the chocolate milk to fat-free, and now he doesn't like it.
Who did Sebastian love the most out of everyone?
Okay. I don't know how you want to how I'd answer that.
One day me, one day
I mean,
Chris,
he
one
may
day
not have had.
Dad. 5 minutes later, I mean, it just depends on when you ask him.
I mean, if I let him do if I take him and go do something cool, oh, I'm the hero, but when I'm getting on to him, Mom's the hero. When Dad takes him fishing, Dad's the hero. So, I mean, it's, he's got 3 parents that love him equally.
He's loved and loves all his parents. I mean, we all have our moments when we're not his favorite too.
Threatened to have Sebastian removed or anything like that?
No.
Okay. And does loud noises or certain smells bother him? Just curious, if law enforcement approached him with sirens, will he run or melt down?
He doesn't like loud noises, but they've known about that from the beginning. So, like, if it's a song he likes, he can turn the volume up, but like fireworks, he can't stand that kind of noise. So, he does have a sensitivity to sudden and loud noises mostly.
Okay. And it said that he likes to hide in small places.
Okay, we are at the part of this interview where, out of respect for a lot of people who have shared and commented with me that last night and last night's interview was very, very triggering for a lot of people. And so there's just some, to me, it's getting a little dark now. This is the 2 hour and 38 minute mark. So I'm going to leave my commentary off at this point. If you want to watch the rest of the video and you want to share your thoughts on it, that is fine. One thing I will ask is to just understand and be respectful that while it was maybe in an unusual way, like, it seemed exciting and thrilling and fascinating when the interview dropped. When you're done listening to it, which I haven't even finished it, I'm almost done. I don't know, probably maybe 20 minutes, and I don't think I'm going to finish it. It was a lot for a lot of people to take in. The treatment of other people, the language that was used, the abusive talk, the abuse references. He along with Katie's husband, along with one of the male panel guest, did make light of the use of a belt, and make light of, what happened in their own life. And I think there's a lot of people out there that do not find humor in that. And I certainly don't condone it. And I can tell you one thing right here and right now: if you or someone you know were ever or are currently a victim of domestic violence, this should be a safe haven for you. And if there's subjects that you are not comfortable listening to, I am okay with that. And if you at any point in time feel like you just need some support or someone to talk to, my email is in the main part of the page. It's I don't think I put it in the content of this particular video, but it, on my channel, my email address is there. So is the Facebook. If you wanted to send me a chat, on Messenger, you're not alone, and you don't have to feel alone in that heaviness. And so I want you to know that you're supported here. And yes, I think in some of these cases, you can't avoid triggering topics that are very, very hard for so many of us to talk about and feel, and brings up bad experience and things like that. But I will always try to do my best to alert people. And I think that none of us were really expecting, even though we did have kind of an alert in our chat here, as to, it's going to get really crazy. I don't know that any of us were really expecting it to get to the degree it was. And so I want you to know I have respect for you and your experience. And I also, with regards to that video, the host Trisha was amazing, and Chloe and Heather, and I want them to know, I from the bottom of my heart, I apologize for the way you were treated and the way you were talked to, and belittled and demeaned and disrespected and attacked and torn down. But I know all of you are extremely, extremely thick-skinned, and I am very confident that you guys are working hard and you're working through this, and you guys, it's just really crappy that had to happen on a forum like that, where everybody got to see it. And I thought you guys handled yourselves well and with dignity. And I'm sure, had that not been in a public forum, well, one, maybe you wouldn't have done it if it wasn't public. But I think you guys would have, put your 2 cents in. And I did notice that when Heather called in versus she was in the chat, I think that was her way of jumping in a sisterhood way of seeing what was maybe happening and how it was escalating, and making sure that they weren't standing alone. Not that all of them don't seem like total tough cookies. That doesn't mean that at the end of the day, when that interview was over, that he didn't leave a mark, and that's his intent. And so while unfortunately, you just can't avoid talking about some of this. I'm working really hard not to say his name anymore. Hopefully, he won't be dominating platforms, and I certainly don't want to just listen to him rant for hours and just treat people like just awful. So I think that we got a ton of answers. I'm again, tune in tomorrow at noon. Obviously, I have a great deal of respect for Deception Detective, but obviously he is going to be playing that interview. So, I would just encourage you to maybe, read the transcript maybe, afterwards if one's available. And we'll see how the video goes. Because I'm extremely curious about his thoughts. And based on the title, I of the video. But anyways, that's tomorrow at noon if you guys want to watch that on his channel. But for tonight, I am going to sign off, and I appreciate all of you tuning in. But I do believe we're starting to get a much clearer picture between yesterday's interview and today. And I think we actually have a lot more answers than we did a few days ago. So I think we will start piecing the puzzle together. I think we just all kind of need a little minute to get away from, what happened with this interview. So anyways, that's it for tonight. Thank you all if you tuned in. I hope you hang around. And we'll keep on it. And I will also be trying to watch, depending on what time it is. And maybe we'll have to do a rewatch. Tamontez Hurt's aunt, I believe, the missing 19-year-old from Kansas City, is supposed to be giving an interview. And it might be happening right now. I'm not sure. So I will be watching that interview, and I hope to also bring that to you and get your thoughts on it, because we really need to get the word out and get more people interested in his case and helping him get home, because I really, again, have a very strong feeling he is out there, and there are no indications that he cannot be found. I mean, I really think it can happen. So, and again, he has been missing since February 1st and not getting hardly any attention. So on that note, have a great evening. Hopefully you guys can get some sleep, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you.